Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to our Monsoon Preparedness Day. I would like to also thank our guests that have showed up, but the Weather Service, and APS and SRP, and our professor from Arizona State to kind of frame for us what this summer is going to look like, at least as best as we can predict. And then there'll be an opportunity for us to have a discussion about anything we need to iron out between now and the start of the monsoon in June. So this is our opportunity to kind of do some presentations and discuss a couple of areas that if there's areas you think we still need to refine, this is again our opportunity to close those gaps in the next 30 days. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Milton Dohoney, the Assistant City Manager, to give us some opening remarks.
Thanks, Kevin, and good morning to you. It doesn't have to be a morgue in here. So, welcome again to all of you to Monsoon Preparedness Day. The real purpose of our being here is to try to mesh together the unknown with the known. We know that monsoon season is upon us. What we don't know is which day we're going to have an incident. We don't know the severity of that incident when it occurs. We don't know what area of the city will be impacted. We don't know how many of our citizens' lives will be impacted. We don't know how much damage we will have to respond to. There's no prognosticator that can give us an accurate picture about that. That's beyond our control. But what we can know is what physical assets we have that can be deployed to anywhere in the community to respond to a city in crisis. What we can know are the skill sets, the experiences, and the commitment of the people in this room and beyond that will be brought to bear when we have a situation. The face of the city of Phoenix is changing because of the demographic shift with baby boomers moving out and others moving on. Every year we have new faces that are assuming roles that heretofore they have not yet been asked to fulfill. And we have the traditional departments that are first responders mixed in with a number of departments that you wouldn't necessarily consider the traditional responders, but are needed and are necessary in order for us to have a coordinated response to an element of severe weather. We hope that when those days come or that day comes that we don't have loss of life, but that's always a possibility when you're talking about an unpredictable thing like the weather. What we need and what we're asking for is that when the monsoon season hits in Phoenix, that we are able to rally a community response, not a city response, but a community response. That's why it's important to have representation from the utilities with us. That's why it's important to communicate with hospitals. That's why it's important to communicate with the media. Because if we're going to be effective in responding, we all have to work together in a coordinated fashion. And one of the challenges that we have had, and one of the challenges that will probably be with us for a while, there is an expectation that what we're doing on the ground at whatever point in the city that we're responding to, people are looking for some real-time information about just what the situation is, just what we're doing about it. There are some departments who historically have not been asked to respond in real time, and we're asking them to find a way to be able to do that. This will not be a flawless execution. There are things that we will do when we look back on it, we'll say, well, this was probably a mistake, and we will grow from those. What we're asking from each of you and from the colleagues that you work with is to bring your best effort, to bring your commitment, and to bring your thinking, your best thinking. If we're talking about an approach to a situation and we're not comfortable with it, then we need to question it. If we think there is a better way to respond, we have to do that. And for the civilian departments, in many instances, it does require a departure from what your normal day looks like, from what your normal work environment looks like. But if we didn't need you to be here, you wouldn't have been asked to be here. And then the final thing is we have to be coordinated in how we communicate to the public. What is it we need from them? What is it we need them to know? What we need them to bring to the table? And we have to be coordinated in how we develop and deliver our messaging. And the messaging will be flowing from a number of areas, including elected officials and community leaders, and everyone will be looking to us to give them the answer, when is it going to get better? And I have no doubt that if we work in a coordinated fashion, if we communicate effectively, if we plan properly, if we respond quickly, if we check our egos at the door and everybody plays the role that they're asked to play, that we will be proud of the effort that we bring forth. So thank you for the commitment that you're making today. Thank you for what you may do in subsequent days. I guess it could be a lot worse. Coming from the Midwest, I've been here 2 years. I haven't seen one blizzard, and I'm happy about it. If I got to put up with a little dust and intense rain, I can live with that. And I've met the greatest bunch of people, greatest bunch of professionals who are truly dedicated to serving the public. It is an honor for me to be with you. So thank you, and have a good day, and I'll turn it back over to Director Kalkbrenner.
So one of the things that we can predict and we can depend on is one of these, a water rescue. So what's really neat about the West is how wild it is, and what's very special about Phoenix is our mountain preserves and our basic green belt that runs through the center of the city. But with that comes a lot of unbridged crossings that are by design not something that you would bridge, but when we do have the torrential rain and localized flooding, we need to close those crossings for a short period of time to let the water go down. However, in the time it takes for us to respond and get those crossings closed, sometimes we have motorists that may make a decision, a less than informed decision, where it looks to them like it's a very crossable situation, and in reality, the force of the water is enough to push them off the road and get them stuck. And that's why our technical rescue team and our police department's air unit are so experienced in this, because they do about, I don't know how many a year, but they do a lot of them a year. So we have a group here today to do a little bit of a demonstration, as well as give us an idea of some of the considerations that they have during one of these events.
Good morning. So yeah, we have Engine 8 here today. They're going to do a demonstration for us. As you see in this video shot, what we're looking at here is somebody who's crossed through this, and they're now stuck in their vehicle. They're in a position where they can't get out without putting themselves in further harm's way. When we as the fire department decide to go into this situation, it's not a lightly made decision. We use something called the risk management profile a risk management decision plan to make that decision because of the risk to our rescuers. That's a series of questions that we ask ourselves to balance the ratio of risk versus reward to getting that person out of harm's way. So when you see these folks setting up in this video here with ropes and boats and things like that, they've gone through 6 steps. Basically, they've asked themselves, can we just reach this, can we just talk to this person and get them out of harm's way on their own? Can we reach them with a pike pole, with an extended ladder, with something like that, that we can not put too much risk to ourselves, but get them out of that way? Or can we throw something to them? One of the rope bags that we have here is long rope in a bag. It's flotational. We can throw that to somebody. We can get them a rope and possibly extract them from that hazardous situation in that way. But then after that, it starts to get very technical. You'll see some of that. So what we're going to demonstrate today is our second highest level of risk. So after we throw that bag, if that's not going to work, we'll use a boat. You see some of that in this video. We can't set that up in here, of course. It just doesn't work well. We then would go into the water, and that's what we're going to demonstrate today. We're going to have a person who's going to play the part of the victim stuck in water in their vehicle. We'll have our rescuer team come to that victim's aid. Now, of course, we don't have water here, right? So to demonstrate the effect that the water has on a rescue of this type, we'll show you some things with the rope that we can do just to provide a little bit of resistance. So we have our victim, Chewy Chew, who's going to be in the vehicle here. And then for our volunteer, we need a volunteer to help us with. We need a volunteer to help us be part of our rescue team. Any volunteers? Aubrey, come on up, Aubrey. And these guys from Engine 8 are going to help us get situated. So you'll see how we kind of put a team together. And again, Aubrey is not trained in technical rescue. However, they're going to get her all ready to go to be the point person on this technical rescue team. As I said, of course, we can't really demonstrate anything in the water. I don't know, maybe we could have had this at a river or something like that, I'm not sure. But in lieu of that, we'll provide some resistance to her as she makes her way towards the victim through means of a rope that's attached to the back of her PFD, her personal flotation device that these guys are putting on her right now. So she'll have a little bit of resistance that she has to overcome. She'll have teammates with her or her crew with her. She's going to use an oar to kind of probe the ground as she makes her way out into this. Because of course, one of the most difficult things that we run into when we're going out into a wash, to a flooded out area, is the footing's not good, it's muddy, there's debris moving downstream towards us, those sorts of things. So as I mentioned before, we're trying to mitigate the risk that we put our rescuers in against trying to make this rescue. So we try to make sure that we have sound footing as best as we possibly can. Now, with this rope on the back of this PFD, it provides her some resistance for the means of this demonstration, but it's not very realistic. To be honest, where these guys experience the most pressure is at the knees, at the thighs, as you can imagine, with the water in that way. It wants to lift them up. It wants to cause their feet to slide out from underneath them as they lean forward trying to make their way to the rescuer. So we've got Chewy Chew in our mock vehicle. We've got Aubrey ready. And Mike, whenever you guys are ready, you guys can start making your way out. Aubrey, how is that? How's the resistance?
It's a little tough.
And those guys aren't helping you at all. You're just trying to overcome it on your own.
Yes.
Right. So when they make their way to the vehicle, they're going to, first thing they want to do is try to provide some measure of safety to the victim themselves. So they have brought out a PFD, a helmet for them, to be able to get that onto the to the victim. There are ropes involved in this, several, 17. So there are things that we would have in place again just for the limitations of this demonstration. We don't have all that set up, but again, to make sure that if something were to go unplanned and there was movement under their feet, they started to be buoyant, whatever those sorts of things, there would be safety systems in that. And even someone always watching the victim in case they decide to go for themselves.
Good job. Thank you very much. What I'd like to do now is introduce Ken Waters from the National Weather Service. He's going to give us our presentation. I think what I really like about Ken is he has a way of presenting the information so that when he's all finished, there's possibilities. So we're going to find out what's our possibilities for this monsoon season. Ken?
Thank you, Director Kalkbrenner. It's a pleasure to be here again this morning. The service, and we're actually a federal agency, and have 122 weather offices across the country. So Phoenix is just one of those. And as you can see, the area that we cover is shown up here in the map. Certainly all of the greater Phoenix area, but we actually extend on to further points west and east, including Yuma and California. And when I go through the review of last year's monsoon activity, I'll show you a couple of major incidents that occurred outside of the Phoenix area, but still relevant certainly to all of us here. First off, I did want to cover just a few aspects of how you can get weather data. We have no weather radio. It's been around a long time, going back, I guess, the 50s or 60s, but it's still a program that runs, and we have a transmitter right out on South Mountain. So the good thing about the no weather radio is not just to get the forecast or what have you, but if you turn it off and just keep it in a ready position, if you will, it will fire off as soon as it receives indication of a warning, like a tornado warning, severe thunderstorm warning, or dust storm warning, and flash flood warnings too. In addition, we certainly have a lot of information up on our internet page. It's weather.gov/Phoenix, and that's a snapshot from just yesterday afternoon. Shows any warnings that might be in effect, any kind of weather data that you need, whether you need a current observation in Phoenix, or possibly like a 7-day forecast, and a lot of other things, including whatever watches might be in effect actually across the country. One of the best things about this webpage is you can actually click on the map and get basically a customized 7-day forecast for whatever location you want, whatever you've clicked on. Okay, as time moves on, we try to keep up with the times. So we do have a social media presence. First off, we have a Facebook page. For general information, the Facebook page is good. I would not suggest it to be the place to go if you're looking to find out exactly what warnings are in effect at the time, or something much more timely. For that, our Twitter feed is very active, and I would really encourage anyone who's interested in following weather as it's breaking to watch the Twitter feed, because we do keep that pretty current for when we have late breaking weather. And we also have a YouTube channel here. In addition, most of you by now have probably become accustomed to sometimes surprising alerts that pop up on your cell phone, and sometimes with loud, unexpected alarm sounds. This is the wireless emergency alert system. It was established about 4 years ago, and I'm a big fan of this because it goes where you go. So if you happen to be driving out Interstate 10, you're going out of town, you're about to go through a dust storm, you're going to get that dust storm warning. And even if you're out of state somewhere, you're still going to get those local warnings, and that can be a lifesaver. And pretty much just about all smartphones these days are programmed to get these. So, on to the monsoon. Well, first off, what is the monsoon? Well, very technically, it's a seasonal reversal in the winds. And here in Arizona, we've kind of defined a rough season. It's June 15th through September 30th. And that's that's kind of taken into account all aspects, all spectrums. Earlier in the season, it's going to be more southern Arizona. So we don't really see the monsoon in a practical sense here in Phoenix, usually until about the first week of July. So that's typically when we're going to start getting some activity. And maybe some of those dust storms before the rain comes in. We might see some of those in late June. But really, July is kind of the big kickoff for us. And it runs through August, and you get into September, it's a little more of a transition season. And one aspect of the monsoon is every monsoon season, you're going to have several of these surges. Basically, it's a moisture plume, if you will, at the surface that moves up generally, usually from Mexico or the Gulf of California, and maybe a little bit of the Pacific moisture. And you're going to notice it right away. You're going to go outside, and you're going to feel that humidity. I mean, there's not going to be a question about it. For those that are tracking it, dew points go way up. You can have dew points up in the 70s, which is really soupy. And that's typically when we're most likely going to get a lot of the active weather, especially the flooding, but also some of the other severe weather that we can get. So a couple points about the monsoon. It's not like a light switch, like it flips on and you're in the monsoon and you can expect weather every day. It's not necessarily like that. It's really tied to those surges that I mentioned. So you're going to get periods of time where for maybe a couple days the moisture levels go down, things get quiet. Of course, it can get hot. But other than that, you're probably not going to get weather for those few days. And yeah, I mentioned that the monsoon season is June 15th through the end of September. Typically, the wetter storms are going to be in the last half of the season. So August is really a big month around here for getting those flash floods. July, it's a little more of a mix as you go back, but a little late in the season, a lot more moisture. And this year, the governor has, working with the governor, we've declared the Monsoon Awareness Week. It's going to be June 12th through 17th. And just as we've done in the past years, we have different themes to deal with. Some of the different aspects of severe weather here that are associated with the monsoon. And I'll briefly cover each of these. Heat is one. Downbursts. We certainly have a lot of activity, downbursts or microburst type damage that we get here in Arizona. Of course, everybody knows about the dust storms and the flash flooding threats. Also lightning, and on a rare occasion, we can actually get a tornado during the monsoon season. I don't know if you all knew, we actually had one last year during the monsoon season. So I've got a picture or two of it coming up. So when we're talking about weather hazards, earlier we had the Weather Channel up here, and I was mesmerized watching a lot of the fascinating weather from yesterday. It's dramatic images, videos of the tornadoes, and so you think about what are the big threats, weather threats that cause injuries and deaths, and most people probably think, oh, it's the tornadoes. Look at that, the dramatic damage that we saw earlier before we started. But in reality, it's actually heat. And heat, of course, is a huge threat here in Arizona and in Phoenix. So it's a big concern for us. It is part of the monsoon, especially, as I mentioned, those times when that surge is down and the dew points come down, it gets a little drier. The tendency is those are the periods when the heat goes up. So a lot of concern there. So just some tips for beating the heat. We've heard most of these already before, I think. Make sure you drink a lot of water, wear appropriate clothes, pace yourself. Try to stay out of the sun during the middle of the day. It's a lot easier to handle things in the morning or later on in the afternoon or early evening. And monitor those that might be at risk. So I mentioned downbursts, microbursts, basically the same thing. basically severe storms, severe thunderstorms that usually all in a matter of about 2 minutes will suddenly drop so much energy. It's that cold air that'll come down in the storm and push out very strong winds. First they're vertical, then they become horizontal as they hit the surface. So this causes a lot of our weather, a lot of our damage that we get during the monsoon season. Examples, roofs getting blown off, signs getting pushed over, power lines down. You see that all the time during the monsoon season. So big threat there. So as I mentioned, it's kind of an explosion of cold air basically coming out, and it's usually about the time when the storms are dying out. So we can get very strong winds, and of course in some cases those winds will come out depending on where that air comes down. It's going to hit a source of dust, and that is often the genesis of those really large scale dust storms that we get every year. And sometimes the damage can be so strong, with 100-mile-an-hour winds, it might be easy to mistake it for a tornado. The damage is about the same. I mean, 100-mile-an-hour winds, whether it's a tornado or a downburst, it's still going to cause some serious damage. Dust storms, every year we get these. And every year it seems we have issues, especially along the highways with accidents, because basically the visibility will suddenly go to zero. And even outside the monsoon, we have these. You all probably heard in the last couple of weeks a number of accidents, huge problems down in southeast Arizona. So it can happen here, it can happen in Pinal County. So it's a serious threat here. Unfortunately, it actually causes or leads to fatalities sometimes. And we already saw like a little exercise about flood safety. The biggest thing that we see is are people that are trying to cross these normally dry crossings. Suddenly, there's fast flowing water. And it's very deceiving in the sense that you don't know how deep that water is, especially if you're maybe not familiar with the road. And also with the force that goes with moving water like that. It can actually, for fast-flowing water, it can only take maybe a foot to 2 feet of deep water to actually pick up a car and wash it away. So big threat there, and I wonder if this is going to work. I might need a click on there we go. I think I've probably shown this before to y'all, but it's such an interesting video. This is Apache Junction during the monsoon, and what it can do to a car. The car initially is going in one direction. And it takes a left turn. So the thing that's fascinating to me about this incident is that, do you see rain in the video? There's no rain. It's not raining at all. Where there happened to be a helicopter from one of the local TV stations, just was able to capture that. The deal was the rain was occurring about 10 miles away, and basically that water came down and very, very quickly rose up, very fast flowing water, and it's enough to pick up a car. And luckily in this case, the lady that was driving the car and her infant child were rescued. We'll move on. Okay, I mentioned lightning. Lightning is certainly a threat here in Arizona. And basically, anytime you're outside, if you hear thunder, you want to try to look for cover. This includes if you're out golfing or maybe you're up at the Grand Canyon on the rim. So seek shelter if you're in lightning, and if indoors, the old sage advice about not touching things metal and I don't know how many of you still have corded telephones, but if you have one, lightning can pass through that, and wait for it to pass. Okay, tornadoes. We do get a few every year. Generally, not like the ones that we saw earlier from the Weather Channel. All the activity that occurred east of us yesterday. But we do get usually like EF0 type tornadoes, and we'll get a couple of them every year. And generally, very little damage. We actually get a lot more damage in Arizona from those downburst storms than we do from the tornadoes. So those are some of the major threats. If you're interested, you want to find out more, you want to keep track of the monsoon, there is a nice little website. We call it the Monsoon Tracker. And if you're really into all the details, you want to watch that dew point, or you want to watch some of the other moisture coming up, all sorts of geeky stuff there. It's available. Okay, I did want to take a few minutes to go over last year, because it's always good to bring up recent history and to see what can happen. And I went back, I looked at the 2015 and tried to come up with what some of the, with the overview and also what some of the more exceptional activities were. Basically, this is for Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, 3.29 inches of rain. So we actually were above normal for the monsoon last year. A little bit above normal, because normal's going to be about 2.7 inches of rain. So also, let's see here, there we go. Wait for the thing. Also, it was warmer than normal, and that's a trend that we keep seeing. Normal for the monsoon, 103.9 for an average max temperature, and we were about 1.5 degrees above that. So there's that continuing trend that we keep hearing about the temperatures going higher and higher. And there's the rainfall. This is for the monsoon season. This is what fell in the Phoenix area. And one thing, above anything else I want to point out, what do you notice about that? There's a lot of variability there, isn't there? That is the standard. That's the nature of the monsoon. Basically, some places get it in some cases really hard. Other places may get very little rainfall, might have a very quiet monsoon season. But if this is going to work, yeah. Notice very, very high amounts, 5.5 inches, right over central Phoenix. So a lot of activity, and that's similar to what we've actually saw in 2014 with all the especially the late monsoon extreme flood events that we had out there due to tropical cyclones. So a lot of variability there. So anywhere from 1/3 of an inch up to over 5 inches of rain. So I went through last year. I came up with what I thought were 6 notable events. A couple of these were outside of the Phoenix area, but worth reviewing nonetheless. And one of them technically is outside of the monsoon season, but I wanted to bring that up as well. So the first was a heavy rain event in Wickenburg. Some of you might remember this from July 18th. And a lot of flooding, as you can see there, with some of the pictures that some of our spotters had sent us. And basically 3.5 inches of rain over a 1 to 2 hour period. Especially in our desert environment, that can cause a lot of trouble when we get so much water in such a short period of time. The next one was outside of the Phoenix area, but actually, let me go back. I'm sure you heard about this. It took out major Interstate 10 for, I want to say, about a month and a half. Basically, a bridge collapse. An enormous amount of water all came, once again, in a short period of time. It's a common thread that we see with the monsoon storms. And this is kind of a radar depiction. Right in the center there, that's Interstate 10 going left to right. And Phoenix is just outside the map. But you see the big red spot there. This is radar indicated rainfall. And Whoops. Okay, I thought. Basically, on the order of about 7 inches of rain in about an hour and a half. Can you picture that? 7 inches of rain. This is a monsoon storm. A lot of rain. It didn't move. It stayed in one place. It's going to cause a lot of issues. In that case, it unfortunately actually took out an interstate highway. Pretty dramatic event. It could happen here. It could happen in Phoenix. I know we have have had some bad flooding on some of the interstates, the major freeways going through Phoenix. August 11th was another one. One unusual aspect of this one, we had a morning dust storm. We don't usually get those in the morning. They're more typical late afternoon, early evening, but it just goes to show that dust storms can occur any time of the day. If you have a strong thunderstorm, it maybe as in this case, was in effect all through the night, and suddenly drops that downburst wind, pushes that dust out, and you've got a dust storm. Are we moving? Click, click, click. There. Oh. Okay, thanks. No, was that the next? Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, a couple more. Sorry about that. Go back one. Okay, yeah. Okay, one more forward. Okay, the next big event was August 31st. A lot of strong winds, a lot of wind damage, trees down, power lines down, that sort of thing. And I believe we also had some dust that day. So you can see the picture down the southwest, the bottom left, showing a great picture of a downburst right near South Mountain, and which is a pattern. This turns out we've actually seen a number of times here in the last couple of years. So, not good for some folks. Okay, this was a big one you may or may not have heard about. It was actually outside the Phoenix area, but again, another flooding event. Remember I said that the flooding typically is going to be more common in August and maybe even into early September as the monsoon season wanes a little bit. Big event here where they had several inches, 4 to 6 inches down in Somerton, which is in the Yuma area, and may or may not have heard about it, but did a lot of damage, a lot of flooding, and there's somebody with a rain gauge showed up, and a lot of damage was done just from this one storm. Again, it can happen here in Phoenix, and often does each year. And last event I wanted to touch, as I mentioned, is just a little bit outside the monsoon season, which technically ends September 30th. But a week later, we had some severe storms come through the Phoenix area, and this is what I would call our transition season. Kind of mid-September, we might get some influences from tropical cyclones that are dying out in the Pacific and Baja. And we also can get the possibility of severe storms coming through. And everybody remember about 5 years ago, oh boy, did we have one of those. First week of October, 3-inch hailstones, tornadoes that occurred just north of the Phoenix area, up in Yavapai, Coconino County. So, so this was the case. We had basically a cutoff low, very, very deep, very severe, potential for severe, and you can see in Arizona, you can see the white specks kind of popping up there. Those were severe storms that occurred across Arizona. And this is what we get. We don't get these very often. This was the tornado that I promised. This is out kind of the West Valley, Buckeye area, and really some dramatic imagery that some of our spotters had. Basically, there were also some unconfirmed reports of funnel clouds and things like that just out of town. So it's a pretty busy day. So just a couple aspects. Switching now to looking at the general climate and an outlook. Everybody's heard about El Nino, right? And you're all waiting for all those heavy rains. Well, We had El Nino basically for 1 week here in Phoenix, week in January. Not what was expected, but basically the pattern changed, and El Nino was there, the moisture was there, it just didn't come into Arizona so much. A lot more of it basically went into a split flow, and it gave record rains across the Gulf Coast, Texas, Louisiana, and that area. And then, as I mentioned, split flow, some of it went to the north of us. Northern California got a little bit of relief from their really bad drought that they've had. But in the meantime, the southwestern United States missed it, and El Nino is almost done. You can see, let's see, basically on the where it says La Nina, that's the current trend. Water temperatures are coming back down to normal. And all indications are we're going to be moving into a La Nina later this year, most likely. You can see all the spaghetti tracks there going down. That's all in La Nina territory. So that's kind of what we're looking at for this fall and winter time. And regarding El Nino, particularly, this is a graph going September through March, and looking at our winter, and we see some good rainfall there, especially the big green spike in early January. And one other rainstorm, weaker one that came through in February, and then that was it. Just dry. We just lost it for actually a couple of months. So kind of disappointing in that sense, because I know we were looking for a lot of recharge from the rain. And the long-term trend, this is average temperatures, so this is high and low when you take the average of them. July, August, September, and for over 100 years, and the trend is pretty obvious. And it's mostly, I mentioned this is the average temperature, it's mostly because of the minimum temperatures. It's not like our high temperatures are getting hotter and hotter and hotter every year. It's not necessarily the case. What's really happening is it's those overnight lows. Those have been creeping up year after year after year, and so that seems to be a long-term trend, and that's what we're having to deal with. Everybody wants me to tell you what's going to happen this monsoon season, right? I've got one whole slide dealing with that. The deal with the monsoon, the point was made earlier that there's some unpredictability about it, and that's the truth. I'll be honest about it. We do have predictability for a short term, though. I mean, in the morning we can tell if it's going to be an active afternoon or active evening. As far as the whole season goes, there's not a lot of skill there right now, to be honest. But this is our outlook for the heat, for temperature, looking July, August, September, and much above normal. That is what we're expecting. So a pretty warm monsoon season. And the precipitation, that's the one that everybody wants to see. Over on the right, it says EC in there, which is the statistician's way of saying flip a coin, equal chances. So not a good signal there, one way or the other. So the best thing is thinking about those topics that I covered: preparedness, the kind of damage you can have, and the kind of actions that we need to take to be ready for the monsoon. And I think that is it. Oh, I wanted to give one plug here. We do have a program called Storm Ready, and also Weather Ready ambassadors, basically working with the communities and to increase communications between the National Weather Service and the communities out there. We're on the verge of certifying a hospital here in the Phoenix area as Storm Ready right now. And a lot of communities across the country, including here in Arizona. And there's more information. You can always contact me. I can give you all the information you want about the program. It's a win for the community, win for the National Weather Service to basically set up that bond between the two. And with that, I think I am done. Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate that. So next up, we have a joint presentation between Arizona Public Service and Salt River Project for some predictions about the energy grid and some explanations for this summer.
Good morning. Better if I stand by the mic. Good morning, I'm John Padilla with APS Emergency Management Transmission Distribution. Thanks for the weather forecast, Ken. We are in close communication with Ken during the monsoon season. So Kelly Muir and I will be talking for APS, and Brent Marquise will be talking for SRP this morning. And we'll talk a little bit about summer power readiness, monsoon season prep, things we do to get ready for the monsoon season, which was really active for us last summer. As most of you know, we worked very closely with the City of Phoenix responding to a number of events. And then lastly, we'll talk a little bit about wildland fire preparedness. We're in wildfire season now, and we'll talk a little bit about how that impacts us here in the valley, even though we don't see too many of those here, thankfully. So, summer power readiness. This is the national grid. As you can see from this diagram here, we're on the western part of the national grid. It runs all the way from British Columbia down to Mexico. So we're part of the Western Energy Coordinating Council, SRP, all the other electric utility providers there. Here in the state of Arizona, you can see this is our grid. This is our transmission system, both APS and SRP. And the lines in red there are 500,000 volt lines. The green lines are our 345,000 volt lines, and the blue lines are our 230,000 volt lines. So that's how we get power down to the valley. So those are going to become important when we talk about wildland fires here in the rest of the presentation. Just wanted to see what it looks like. We have a few new lines going in this year. We had two 500,000 volt lines going down to Yuma now. We put a new line in last year for APS that helped us relieve a little problem we had down the Yuma area that led to some outages during storms. So we have that taken care of. This is our service area within the City of Phoenix. So you can see the City of Phoenix is in green here. The red area is the APS service area, also known as the keyhole between us and SRP. And SRP is south of the blue line there, and APS is to the north. So we do work very closely, storm response. We are very interconnected, both of us. A little bit of information about APS. We are the largest privately owned power producer in the state. We cover 11 of the 15 counties, so we have a large area that we cover. This year we have 430 substations. We put 5 new ones online. We also increased the number of distribution miles, and that's the lines that go from our substations to your homes and businesses, up to 29,000. The transmission lines that we showed earlier, we've got about 6,000 miles of transmission lines now and 65 generation units. And that's all generation, renewable energy, nuclear, gas, coal, all of them. So you can see here's our diverse energy mix. So we're looking to move away from coal in the future, and we're filling that with natural gas and with renewable energy resources. So you can see our plan there to move from 2016 to 2031. The blue is the natural gas, so we've been picking up new natural gas powering generation stations. They come online a lot faster than coal. They allow us to meet that load when we have load issues. And coal's going down, so we'll be reducing the amount of coal from 25% of our portfolio to 14%. But you want to know what the forecast looks like power-wise for this year, so there it is. So we are expecting demand to be about 7,900 megawatts, 7,900 million watts. And we have a capacity of 8,400 watts, so we've got plenty of capacity there. You can see the 954, that's our reserve margin. That's power that we buy on the open market. And the 69,000 is power that we generate. So that's the last of my slides for this. Before I turn it over to SRP, any questions? No? Okay. Brent?
So just Ken Lewis and Pat O'Toole are the emergency managers for SRP that normally typically come and do this. I had the privilege of working with them the first time on my way out to Hurricane Sandy in the middle of a crisis, so I appreciate this ability to do some planned, prepared storm preparation each year now instead of doing it on the fly as we're working through it. So those of you that are used to getting emails and used to getting the outage updates, Ken Lewis and Pat O'Toole are still our emergency managers for SRP. So a little bit about SRP. We are not the largest. We're the second largest. We have just a little over 1 million customers, and we work mainly in the Maricopa County, Pinal, and the Gila County. So we're just in the local central part of Arizona. Our resources, we're predominantly coal and gas, and a little bit of nuclear, and again, moving away from coal as the industry's moving away from coal into renewable resources. But you can see there's our planned expected demand this summer, about 8,007 megawatts. And that's how we're going to derive it this year between coal, gas, and renewable. Our expected need, again, is just a little bit over 8,000 megawatts. Our own forecasted retail load is a little over 6,700. We have about another 302 in sales, and then we also have to keep that spinning reserve for that extra capacity just in case. How we will get it, again, we can generate internally at SRP about 6,600, and then we have the contracts in place and the purchase power agreements to make sure we have the remaining load available for the valley. Again, our peak demand for both utilities this year is projected to be about the same, not a big increase, if not maybe a slightly lower. And we have the adequate contracts and resources in the valley to meet that this year. So we're not expecting, outside of a catastrophic failure in one of our receiving yards or transmission lines, we're not expecting, I say this, but the rolling brownouts or black. We have plenty of capacity to meet the need. Some of the things we're doing in preparation for storms is the preventative maintenance. We do that all year long, every year. We have that tree trimming program that goes through and removes trees that are growing in our lines. That's probably during the summer months, during the monsoon, when the winds are the most active. Probably one of our biggest issues that we face: trees falling down, branches falling down that tear down lines. Bushing replacements in our substations. We have an underground cable replacement program, which really not impacted by the storm, but it's something we're doing to maintain our system reliability. We have plenty of spare equipment and material, and we frequently work amongst utilities. Last year, a year or two ago, APS had quite a few poles down in the Yuma area, and we were able to give them hardware to help them get that back up, and we do that back and forth quite a bit. So we work together mutually, internally. Maybe it's not mutual assistance outside the valley, but we're constantly doing it between the two utilities, so it helps. We harden the system on the 69 and our distribution, working on the cybersecurity. We have wildfire coordination, which are here later in the presentation, but we actually have dedicated resources that when there's a wildfire, they head up and they join the ICS teams and report back, and they're in communication with our operations centers and with your incident command centers. We do patrols every year, twice a year on our 500 lines, just to make sure that they're in good shape and there's nothing encroaching on them. We have a black start training and also the a rolling brownout training that we do every year just in case we have to initiate it. And again, we do storm planning at least once or twice a year. Ken Lewis for us and Pat O'Toole have us go through this planning every year. Again, this is just another slide that says we're ready. We have the transmission, distribution, and generation in place for the anticipated load this year. The demand is not expected to be anything above and beyond what we normally see. And then we have contingency plans in place. And then again, we're proactively working each year to improve our communications to emergency centers like this, to our customers, and to anybody that needs the information. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kelly for the monsoon.
Hi, I'm Kelly Muir. I'm one of the emergency managers for APS on the corporate side, and I manage the Emergency Operations Center, and we work really closely with SRP. So pretty much a lot of what Brett said we do as well. But I want to talk to you a little bit this morning about what we do to prepare for the summer storms. Both SRP and APS were prepared to deploy crews to restore power as quickly and as safely as we can. They talked about some of the things that we do all year long, but we want to talk about specifically what do we do to prepare for monsoons. In 2015, we got hit pretty hard in the valley. I think Ken talked about some of those days. We're going to show you some slides really briefly, some that were big for us. Back up. They talked about the Whitman storm. For us, August 28th, there was a period of days where like the 28th to the 31st of August, if you remember. That particular day, August started off with a 10% chance of thunderstorms, but remember Ken said it changes rapidly. So when the day started off, there was a 10% chance of a thunderstorm, and of course, the power company, we monitor the situation very closely during the monsoons because we know that the weather, the heavy rains and the high winds can impact our reliability. Well, that particular morning it started off 10% chance of thunderstorm. By the end of the day, there was 4 microbursts, and at the peak, we had 50,000 customers without power. So obviously, the monsoon is very important to us to make sure we stay ahead of that. How do we do that? There's a couple things that we do. The first, I think Brett talked about the very close coordination on an emergency management perspective. We work very closely with the National Weather Service, with the city emergency management officials, with the state and the county as well. So we work very closely with them. There's a lot of communication that goes on. We actually are on each other's phones on speed dial. So the coordination really in the city and the county and even among the critical infrastructure partners, Tucson Electric Power, Southwest Gas, it's there. So from a critical infrastructure perspective, your partners here in the valley are prepared to work together to make sure that we maintain reliable service to our customers. So the other thing that we do, training and exercise, we conduct 4 what we call enterprise-wide exercises a year, which is a lot, where we activate our emergency operations center and we train and we exercise. In addition to that, every department or business unit at APS has a business continuity plan that they're required to update and exercise every year. We also, after each exercise, conduct an after-action report where we evaluate what we did well and any gaps that we identify so that we can correct those gaps to continue to improve. The other thing that we do is we have, like John's going to talk a few minutes about what we do to prepare for the wildfire. So we have response plans that deal with curtailment if for some reason we have to drop the load down. We have wildland response plans, summer storm plans. When the big game was here in January, we had a winter operations plan. So we are continually preparing for any contingencies that could impact our ability to deliver service to our customers. Right now, our 2 big stations, Pinnacle Peak and the West Wing, we are May 16th through the 18th conducting some familiarization with our fire partners to come in and learn what happens there, how to operate safely if an incident was to occur. We do the same thing on the law enforcement side. We conduct law enforcement familiarizations with our substations and that sort of thing so people know how our responders can operate safely if an incident were to occur. As far as outreach goes, we conduct targeted customer outreach to our customers, to our partners in the community, city officials, state, county, etc. We do that through email. We have a very robust website that provides a lot of information, aps.com. We'll talk about that in a minute. We coordinate with our local folks in the event that there was an outage and we have to provide shelter. We make sure that we work really closely with the city of Phoenix to identify shelter locations to make sure power is working in those situations. One of the things we also do is provide dry ice for customers or reimburse them if they have to purchase. If your power goes out and you have to get dry ice to not lose all the contents of your refrigerator or freezer, that is something that both SRP and APS does. The other thing that we do that's really important for our customers that rely on life-sustaining medical equipment, we have a medical care program where you can register online or with a hard form with APS to let us know that you have some kind of equipment that you're relying on. And what happens with that is we make sure you're a priority in our restoration efforts. But, so really important for folks that are on dialysis or continuous oxygen. We're concerned about our customers too. So that is something that's an option for them. Where can you get information about outages? So here are some places. We have a call center that's staffed 24 hours a day. You can pick up the phone and call, and you'll have someone answer that phone and can provide the information for you. Same place you can pay your bills, coincidentally. There's also recorded outage messages. So if there's an outage and you're calling to say I have an outage, you may be greeted with a we're aware that we have an outage, and they'll tell you what the boundaries are. So the Customer Care Center is a great place to do it. You can also go to APS.com. I'll show you a map here in a minute of what we have outage maps that are really cool and really easy to use. The news media, obviously, APS has a media hotline that the media can access 24 hours a day. If we have an outage, they can, very similar to the public safety DPS one as well, that we have access to that too. So the communication is two-way between APS and the news media. Social media, obviously, we have a Facebook and a Twitter page. We'll show you in a minute. Same type of place. So there's lots of places to get information if you're wondering, hey, what's going on and when's my power coming back on? From a social media perspective, obviously we have Facebook and Twitter, and there you can find also on the outage map what we call an ETR, estimated time of restoration. How long's my power gonna be out? We all wanna know that, right? Especially during the summer when it's hot. It'll also say what the general area affected is. You know, is it 35th Avenue to 27th, Dunlap to Northern? You can see how big is the outage. Also how many customers are affected. If we know what caused the outage, you can find that information there as well. During the monsoon, you can bet it's probably going to be the weather. They can also respond to customer service inquiries. So if you have a question, you can post your question on Facebook. Someone will get back to you. Same thing if you call the call center. You can also sign up ahead of time to have outage alerts. So you can go on, if you have an APS account, you can go into the website, and that's something you can sign up for as well. So here's our outage map. If you go to aps.com, you'll pop up here on the bottom, you'll see outage. You can access this on your mobile phone, a laptop, a traditional PC. Pretty much any way you can get to the internet, you can access this map. In the bottom, there's a little corner that says outage. If you click on that, here's what one of our outage map looks like. So you can see the area that's impacted. This little square will tell you how many customers on this particular day. Only 4. During the monsoon, on August 28th, that was 50,000. So it'll show you how big an area is impacted. Our goal after our lifelines and essential services is to restore as much power to the greatest amount of customers at a time. So this will kind of tell you how many people are impacted. It'll tell you if there's planned outages. For some reason, if we're taking a transformer offline or doing maintenance, you can see that as well. One of the things you can also find on this outage map is you can find out where we're doing ice. Okay, so if you're in an impacted area and you need ice for your freezer, you can also click on, I want to say it's a little blue diamond. They'll tell you where you can go pick up ice. So lots of good information there. I'm going to turn it over back to Brett from SRP, and he's going to talk a little bit about the storm's impact for them last year.
So at SRP, this is my role and responsibility. I'm responsible for all the line crews at SRP, the distribution line maintenance crews at SRP. So monsoon storms, I was really disappointed because I was expecting to hear today exactly when and where and how bad. Okay, because they're asking us for unplanned outage information all the time. So I was really hoping to get that. But we really work amongst SRP interdepartmental to get prepared for this early in the year. We get all of our organizations together. We start preparing for material, for resources. We even, in the last few years, have been starting to work with even the Phoenix Fire, one of the PIOs. I don't want to get him in trouble, but his name's Aaron Erzberger, to do mutual assistance in case we need it. And I had one meeting with him, and the very next day, he's asking for our helicopter. I said, well, hold on, mutual assistance. Let's work this out. But that's, if you know Aaron, that's who it is. So as we work through the summer, these are just some pictures of down power lines, down poles. And I know initially it's the weather, it's the heat, but once the aftermath, down poles and down power lines can create a hazard for the public too. We try to respond as soon as we can, as fast as we can. But really, we're the boots on the ground that are getting the information to our emergency managers, our outage communication teams, our media, so that they can get them out to everybody else so that you're aware and informed of what the damage was and how long it's going to take to get the power back on. Our emergency management team coordinates with APS, the state, the county, and that's Pat O'Toole and Ken Lewis. They have the quarterly meetings, as was stated, with APS, with SRP, and Southwest Gas. We went too fast. We do the training exercises, and we do these with our own emergency management teams. We do the load shed and the black start training. Our operations group does that. It's really automated now, but they go through an automatic training or annual training every year. We do these exercises and we do these trainings throughout the year to prepare for this June through September timeframe as we consider our storm season. We start our storm season a little earlier just due to the heat and what the heat does to some of our equipment. But again, June 15th is what we've traditionally called our monsoon season as well. For SRP, you can report an outage via the web, via mobile device, and we also have the call center reps at our 8888 phone number 24/7, 365. We are now really getting into e-notifications if you happen to be a customer of SRP, where you can receive a text or an email anytime we take you out on a planned outage or an emergency outage. We can send you a note when you go out, and we can send you a note on an update on how long it's going to be, and then when we actually restore the power, then we're really getting into the e-notifications. Right now we have a little over 600,000 people signed up for it, and so it's a good way for us as we do a planned outage or even on an emergency outage if you're not at home to be aware that there's no reason to go home because you don't have any power right now. So we have that set up, and that's again through text or email. We have social media, Facebook and Twitter, and it's interesting with the whole Twitter and Facebook dynamic. It's a lot of times I get the information via Twitter before I actually know what's going on from our own crews, because there'll be a customer out there that takes a picture of a pole that just fell, and we'll get to see it on Twitter. So it's kind of interesting the way that social media has changed the way we see our outages. On our srpnet.com webpage, we also have an outage map. At the very top, there's an outage map link, and then down in the lower section, there's an outage map link that you can click on, and it will take you to it's our public outage information. It'll tell you the outage start time, the time we think it's going to take to restore power, how many people are impacted, and a reason. And again, this is updated throughout the outage process, from the initial to when our crews show up, and it's continually updated as we go. This is what the public sees, and then this is what we see. In our department, we have what we call a storm center. So once we actually the storm blows through, we get all the trouble calls come in, we're able to see not just the trouble calls, we're able to see our crews, and it helps us to respond with the closest to the call type. So then we actually set up a storm center in our service location down in Tempe. During the storms, I know our emergency managers are sending emails, and that's why I wanted to let you know this is an example from Pat O'Toole, just kind of an update to all the emergency managers of what's going on, how big the outage is. A lot of times these will come out initially and there'll be 50, this one's 30,000 customers out of power, but the way our system is built, we're able to switch through it and close breakers and get people back in and shrink that outage down to, hopefully a few hundred during the height of a storm. And with that, I'll turn it over to John. We'll do questions there.
Last section before the break. Any questions about any of the information we've presented thus far? Sure.
Well, since neither utility can tell us when you're going to have your next outage, can you at least tell us what the circumstances are where you would invoke power curtailment or rolling blackouts?
Sure. We do have a electric load curtailment plan that we're required to file with the ACC every year. Matter of fact, we're getting ready to exercise that next week. It's just if we can't meet the load. So if we don't have enough generation available, we have a power plant down, we have transmission lines down, some way that we can't meet the demand in the valley, then the first thing we do is do voluntary curtailment. We would reach out to all of our key account customers, our large customers, ask them to turn off the air conditioning, maybe they can reduce their load that way, close down buildings that they're not using to bring that load down. If that's not enough, we have a computer system that picks the amount of load that we are short, and it will rotate through our feeders statewide, and it'll turn them off for 20 to 30 minutes. And then after 30 minutes, it'll go to the next set of feeders. So does that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay, wildland fires. Like I said earlier, you saw the transmission lines that we have in the northern part of the state. Those are really the ones that are most susceptible to wildland fires, the ones coming over the rim from New Mexico, from our Four Corners plant up there, from our SRP's Navajo generating plant that we get power from, down to mainly Pinnacle Peak and West Wing substations in the north part of the valley. So we have dedicated liaisons that we deploy with fire incident management teams. We just hired one last year. His name's Wade Ward. He's a fire mitigation specialist, and I know SRP has one as well. And we embed those right into the incident management team. We've been training the last 2 years. All of our emergency response are now NIMS-based. We operate in an incident command system style format, so all of our crews understand incident command so they can go out there and integrate with those fire management teams. They go in right behind the firefighters. We do have some that are red carded, so they are trained to go in behind the wildland firefighters, and they start putting the poles back up and get the power back on. There's a video, a really good one that SRP did. It's available on YouTube, and you can go there, just Google YouTube SRP wildland fire video. It's really nice. It's just we were going to show it today, but it's just too long. It's about 20 minutes today, but it really is a good video that talks about how electrical companies work for wildland fires. We do have coordination meetings. We talked a little bit about that. We meet quarterly with the electric utilities and also the gas utilities, and we talk about what trends are we seeing? Are there anything we need to be aware of, especially with since we use natural gas to power our plants? We need to know if there's going to be any type of shortage anywhere else in the country that might impact us. That's really critical in the winter time. So we also talk about common protocols for working together and sharing information. You'll kind of see that at the end of these slides here about how we share wildland fire information. So we do use MODIS in Google Earth. And for those of you who've seen MODIS, it just basically shows you hotspots. There are 4 MODIS satellites up there circling the Earth at all times. So every 4 hours, they update this information that you can see on Google Earth. And it'll basically show you the hotspots, where they are. And we generally check around our transmission power lines, around our generation facilities, around our substations. Those are the type of things that we're looking for wildland fire-wise. It's also available on social media. There's a lot of social media information out there from the Forest Service. So the things we look at, generating plants, transmission lines, like I said, SRP has their water corridor, our distribution facilities. So we look at that, and then we basically talk to each other. We call each other on the phone, we send each other emails, we email back and forth, just to make sure that we're all in the loop. Even though it may not be an APS facility that's affected or an SRP facility that's affected, we'll call them up and say, hey, do you know about this? We know you have transmission lines in the area, we know you have equipment in the area, you have communications systems in the area. So we're constantly talking about that to maintain that situational awareness statewide. Because even though SRP serves the valley mainly, all that power coming in statewide, they need to know about to make sure that they're getting the power here. Okay, so here's an example of the collaboration. So this was a Dose fire, probably remember that from 2013. And it was 8 miles northwest of Prescott, and this information came from SRP over to us at APS. So this is the first slide that we got from them. And this is typical MODIS data. You can see where the wildland fire is, and you can see the green line. That's our 115,000 volt line that goes to Baghdad. And Baghdad, yes, Baghdad, Arizona. There's a mine up there that we provide power to. And the fire's burning right under our lines, so that was not good. I think we lost 13 poles that were on fire. We actually had troublemen out there on the poles putting them out. So you can see here as the fire is moving north away from the line. It's moving up towards that Western Area Power Authority line, which is a 230,000 volt line, which is bringing power down to the valley. That was a big concern for us. Excuse me. Mainly it's smoke, not the heat from the fire. If we have a light smoke, it doesn't impact the lines too much, but if you have that heavy dark smoke, has a lot of carbon in it, causes the lines to arc, and they open, and there's no more power coming through. So that's a big issue with us, especially as they get within 5 miles of the lines. So here you can see where the fires continues to burn up that way. This is at 4 p.m. And this is the data. The SRP was actually sending this over to us at APS. And here you can see the fires going out, and you can see the color change here into the MODIS data. And that's it. Any questions about power supply, how we respond? No? You guys ready for a break? It's always a good day in the EOC when the lights are on and the generator's not running. Okay, Kevin? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Got to work with you guys firsthand when the microburst hit at 15th Avenue and Thomas, and also at 16th and Indian School. And so the Red Cross responded, sheltered some of our residents, and APS and SRP put out ice. And one was at Madison Park. So it really is a great partnership and helps us as we try to respond to the residents' needs if we can work together. So thank you very much. Look forward to working with you. Hopefully it'll be a quiet season, but we'll be ready.